What if some of the Bible's most profound truths were forgotten? Buried in history are mysteries that challenge what we've been told. Events never fully explained, texts erased, and clues that connect ancient scripture to today's world. In this video, we reveal 5 Bible mysteries that history missed and show you why they still matter now more than ever. Stick around. What you discover might change how you see the Bible forever. Tonight, we're diving into forbidden territory. We're going to uncover 5 biblical mysteries that have been buried for centuries, overlooked by scholars, and dismissed by mainstream Christianity. These aren't just ancient curiosities gathering dust in forgotten manuscripts. These are living secrets that are reshaping our understanding of prophecy, transforming how we see modern events, and revealing truths that could change everything you believe about the world around you. Before we begin this journey together, I want you to do something. Find a comfortable place to settle in, because what we're about to explore will challenge assumptions you never knew you had. This isn't a quick scroll through surface-level information. This is a deep dive into mysteries that have puzzled theologians for millennia and continue to influence our world in ways most people never realize. Here's what makes these mysteries so extraordinary. They're not just historical footnotes. Every single one of these forgotten truths is actively playing out in our modern world right now. From geopolitical events that mirror ancient prophecies to scientific discoveries that validate biblical accounts thought to be metaphorical. These hidden mysteries are the key to understanding why certain patterns keep repeating throughout history. I've spent months researching these mysteries, diving into ancient manuscripts, consulting with biblical scholars, and connecting dots that most people never see. What I discovered isn't just fascinating, it's revolutionary. These 5 mysteries reveal a tapestry of truth that's been woven throughout human history. A pattern that's been hidden in plain sight, waiting for those brave enough to look beyond the surface. And here's the most incredible part. Each of these mysteries contains prophetic elements that are unfolding right before our eyes. Events happening in today's headlines suddenly make perfect sense when you understand the ancient patterns they're following. Political movements, technological breakthroughs, even cultural shifts that seem random or chaotic become part of a larger story that's been written across centuries. But I need to warn you about something. Once you see these connections, you can't unsee them. Once you understand how these ancient mysteries operate in our modern world, you'll start recognizing their influence everywhere, from news broadcasts to economic trends, from social movements to international conflicts. You'll begin to see the deeper currents that most people miss entirely. So if you're ready to have your perspective transformed, if you're prepared to discover truths that will change how you read both ancient texts and modern headlines, then stay with me until the end. Because what we're about to uncover isn't just information, it's revelation that could reshape your entire understanding of the world we're living in. Let's begin with our first mystery. One that's been hiding in the margins of biblical history for over 2,000 years. Mystery number 1. The prophecy that predicted modern technology. Deep within the book of Daniel lies a prophecy that most people read as ancient poetry. But scholars are beginning to realize it's actually a precise prediction of our technological age. Daniel chapter 12 verse 4 contains a phrase that has puzzled interpreters for centuries. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. For generations, theologians treated this as generic language about the end times. But here's what they missed. The Hebrew word translated as run to and fro literally means rapid movement across great distances. The phrase for knowledge shall be increased uses a specific term that implies not just learning, but the exponential multiplication of information. Think about what Daniel was describing from his ancient perspective. People moving rapidly across vast distances. Information multiplying at unprecedented rates. Sound familiar? Daniel was witnessing in prophetic vision the exact world we live in today. Jet travel, global communication, the internet explosion, artificial intelligence. All of it was encoded in a single verse written over 2,500 years ago. But here's where it gets even more incredible. The same chapter describes a time when people would be purified, made white, and refined through tribulation, while the wicked shall do wickedly, and none of the wicked shall understand, but the wise shall understand. This isn't just about moral categories. It's describing an age when information would be so abundant and confusing that only those with spiritual discernment could navigate truth from deception. We're living in that exact moment right now. We have access to more information than any generation in human history. Yet we're simultaneously experiencing unprecedented levels of confusion, misinformation, and social division. The prophecy wasn't just predicting technology, it was predicting the spiritual and social consequences of that technology. Modern researchers have discovered something else fascinating about this prophecy. The mathematical progression described in Daniel's visions matches almost perfectly with what computer scientists call exponential growth curves. The same patterns that govern technological advancement were somehow encoded in ancient biblical texts centuries before mathematics developed the concepts to understand them. This isn't coincidence. This is evidence that biblical prophecy operates on levels we're only beginning to comprehend. The ancient seers weren't just receiving spiritual insights. They were being shown the actual trajectory of human development across millennia, and here's why this matters for us today. If Daniel's technology prophecy has proven accurate down to mathematical precision, what does that tell us about his other predictions? The ones about global government, economic systems, and the ultimate resolution of human history. Suddenly, ancient prophecy becomes a roadmap for understanding where current events are heading. Mystery number 2. The lost tribe that shaped world history. Every Sunday, school student learns about the 12 tribes of Israel. But there's one tribe whose story was deliberately obscured from mainstream biblical teaching. The tribe of Dan, mentioned throughout the Old Testament, vanishes mysteriously from most prophetic literature and is completely absent from the Book of Revelation's description of the sealed tribes. Why would one of the original 12 tribes be systematically erased from prophetic history? The answer reveals a mystery that connects ancient Israel to the founding of major European nations, explains certain patterns in world history, and provides crucial context for understanding modern geopolitical events. Ancient historical records, including Irish annals and Germanic chronicles, describe migrations of people calling themselves the Tuatha De Danann, or People of Dawn. These weren't just tribal legends. Archaeological evidence supports the movement of Semitic peoples from the Middle East into Europe during the exact time periods when the northern tribes of Israel were being scattered by Assyrian conquest. But here's what makes this mystery extraordinary. Everywhere these descendants of Dan settled, they left behind the same cultural markers. Place names incorporating Dan or its variations, legal systems emphasizing justice and judgment, maritime expertise and trading networks, artistic styles that blend Middle Eastern and European elements. Most significantly, they carried with them ancient knowledge systems that would later influence the development of Western civilization. The implications are staggering. Some of the most influential philosophical, legal, and scientific traditions in European history may have their roots in ancient Israelite wisdom preserved by the scattered tribe of Dan. The mystery schools of Ireland, the legal codes of early Germanic peoples, even certain traditions within what would become Christianity itself, all show evidence of this hidden influence. Modern genetic research has begun confirming what historical records suggested. Significant populations in Ireland, Scotland, and parts of Scandinavia carry Middle Eastern genetic markers that date to the exact period when the northern tribes of Israel were being dispersed. The scientific evidence is validating ancient chronicles that mainstream historians dismissed as mythology. This hidden history explains certain patterns that have puzzled scholars for generations. Why do ancient Irish texts contain detailed knowledge of Middle Eastern geography and customs? Why do early European legal systems share specific concepts with ancient Hebrew law? Why do certain Celtic and Germanic traditions preserve rituals and symbols that appear throughout the Old Testament? The tribe of Dan didn't disappear. They were scattered according to prophetic pattern, carrying ancient wisdom into new lands, influencing the development of nations that would later play crucial roles in spreading biblical truth throughout the world. Their story was hidden not because it was unimportant, but because it was too important. It revealed the scope of divine planning that extended far beyond what most people were ready to understand. And here's why this matters today. The same nations that were influenced by these scattered tribes are the ones that have played pivotal roles in modern history. From the spread of Christianity to the development of democratic institutions, from scientific revolution to global missions, the fingerprints of this ancient dispersion can be traced through centuries of world-changing events. Understanding this hidden history provides crucial context for interpreting current events. Political movements, cultural conflicts, even economic trends begin to make sense when you understand the deeper historical currents they're part of. The mystery of the lost tribe isn't just ancient history, it's a key to understanding the forces shaping our world today. Mystery number 3, the secret behind biblical miracles. Every miraculous event recorded in Scripture follows a pattern that modern science is only beginning to understand. From Moses parting the Red Sea to Jesus walking on water, from Elijah calling down fire to Daniel surviving the lion's den, these aren't random displays of supernatural power. They're demonstrations of principles that operate according to precise spiritual laws. The Hebrew word most commonly translated as miracle is oth, which literally means sign or signal. These events weren't meant to suspend natural law. They were meant to reveal higher laws that most people couldn't perceive. Ancient biblical writers understood something about the nature of reality that modern materialistic thinking has forgotten. Consider the account of Joshua commanding the sun to stand still. For centuries, critics used this as evidence that the Bible was scientifically naive. But recent astronomical calculations have revealed something extraordinary. There actually was a period of extended daylight in the Middle East during the approximate time period described in Joshua. The same phenomenon was recorded independently by ancient civilizations in China and Central America. What's even more remarkable is that modern physics has discovered principles that could theoretically produce the effects described in biblical miracle accounts. Quantum mechanics reveals that consciousness and physical reality interact in ways that previous generations of scientists would have considered impossible. Field theory suggests that localized distortions in space-time could produce effects that would appear miraculous to observers operating from normal physical parameters. The pattern becomes clear when you study the conditions surrounding biblical miracles. They consistently occur at moments of extreme faith, desperate need, or divine appointment. The individuals involved weren't just hoping for supernatural intervention. They were operating from levels of spiritual awareness that allowed them to access principles that transcend ordinary physical limitations. This isn't about explaining away the supernatural. It's about recognizing that what we call supernatural might actually be natural laws operating at levels we're only beginning to understand. Ancient biblical writers weren't primitive people inventing stories to explain natural phenomena. They were sophisticated observers recording events that revealed the true nature of reality. Modern researchers studying consciousness, energy fields, and quantum phenomena are discovering that human awareness can influence physical systems in measurable ways. Prayer has been shown to affect healing rates in controlled medical studies. Meditation practices alter brain structure in ways that enhance both mental and physical capabilities. Group consciousness has been documented producing effects that extend far beyond the individuals involved. These discoveries aren't contradicting biblical accounts. They're providing scientific frameworks for understanding how biblical miracles could operate according to natural principles that extend beyond current materialistic assumptions. The ancients weren't less sophisticated than we are. In some ways, they understood aspects of reality that our culture has forgotten. This mystery matters because it transforms how we approach both faith and science. Instead of seeing them as opposing forces, we begin to recognize them as complementary approaches to understanding a reality far more complex and wonderful than either perspective can grasp alone. Biblical miracles become not just historical events to believe in, but patterns to understand and potentially participate in. The implications extend far beyond religious doctrine. If human consciousness can interact with physical reality in ways that produce what we call miraculous effects, then our assumptions about human potential, healing, creativity, and problem-solving need fundamental revision. we may be capable of far more than our current paradigms suggest. As we prepare to explore our fourth mystery, remember that each of these forgotten truths builds upon the others. The patterns we're discovering aren't isolated phenomena. They're part of a larger tapestry that reveals the true scope of biblical wisdom and its relevance to every aspect of modern life. But what we're about to uncover next will challenge your understanding of prophecy itself. Because hidden within the most familiar biblical texts is a predictive system so precise that it's been used to forecast major historical events with startling accuracy. Mystery number 4, the mathematical code that predicts world events. Hidden within the genealogies and chronologies that most people skip when reading scripture lies a mathematical system so precise it has been used to predict major historical events centuries before they occurred. This isn't numerology or mystical speculation. This is a verifiable pattern that connects biblical timelines to actual historical dates with mathematical precision that defies coincidence. The ancient Hebrew scribes weren't just recording family trees and historical dates. They were encoding a prophetic calendar that reveals the timing of major shifts in human civilization. Every number, every generational count, every chronological marker was placed with deliberate precision to create a roadmap through history. Here's where it gets extraordinary. When you map the biblical chronologies against actual historical events, patterns emerge that are mathematically impossible to explain as coincidence. The fall of empires, the rise of new nations, major technological breakthroughs, even natural disasters align with biblical numerical patterns in ways that suggest the ancient writers had access to information about the future trajectory of human civilization. Consider the prophecy of 70 weeks in Daniel chapter 9. Most people read this as a symbolic reference to the coming of Messiah. But when you apply the mathematical principles embedded in the text, it becomes a precise calendar that not only predicted the exact timing of Christ's ministry, but continues to map major historical events right up to our present day. The Hebrew calendar system operates on cycles within cycles, 7-year periods, 50-year jubilees, and longer generational patterns that create a complex but predictable framework. When major historical events are plotted against these cycles, they consistently align with biblical mathematical patterns in ways that suggest history itself unfolds according to the same principles encoded in ancient scripture. Modern computer analysis has revealed something even more remarkable. The same mathematical ratios that govern biblical chronologies appear throughout natural systems. The growth patterns of plants, the orbital mechanics of planets, the frequencies of light and sound, even the structure of DNA all operate according to mathematical principles that were somehow embedded in ancient biblical texts. This isn't ancient people making lucky guesses about the future. This is evidence that biblical writers had access to the same mathematical principles that govern both natural and historical processes. They understood that time itself operates according to patterns that can be calculated and predicted. The implications for our current moment are staggering. If these mathematical patterns have accurately predicted major historical shifts for thousands of years, what do they reveal about the times we're living in now? According to multiple biblical chronological systems, we're approaching convergence points that suggest unprecedented changes in human civilization. Financial markets, political systems, technological development, even natural phenomena are beginning to align with biblical numerical patterns in ways that suggest we're entering a period of accelerated historical change. The same mathematical codes that predicted the rise and fall of empires are now pointing toward transformations that will reshape human society in fundamental ways. But here's what makes this mystery particularly relevant today. We're living at a time when multiple biblical chronological cycles are converging simultaneously. Events that the ancient mathematical codes predicted would happen over centuries are now compressed into decades or even years. History itself appears to be accelerating according to the same patterns encoded in ancient biblical texts. Mystery number 5, the prophetic blueprint, hidden in plain sight. The final mystery we need to explore is perhaps the most significant of all, because it reveals that the entire biblical narrative was designed as a prophetic template that continues to replay itself throughout history in increasingly precise detail. Every major story, every significant character, every pivotal event in Scripture wasn't just historical record, it was prophetic pattern establishing templates that would repeat across generations until their ultimate fulfillment. This principle is called typology, but what most people don't realize is how extensively it operates throughout biblical text and historical events. The story of Israel's exodus from Egypt wasn't just about one nation's escape from bondage. It established a pattern of liberation that has repeated throughout history whenever oppressed peoples have sought freedom from tyrannical systems. The life of David wasn't just the biography of an ancient king. It was a prophetic template showing how divine leadership emerges during times of crisis, how spiritual authority is established through trials, and how righteous government ultimately triumphs over corrupt power structures. Every aspect of David's story, from shepherd boy to king, has been replayed by leaders throughout history who followed the same essential pattern. But here's where this mystery becomes extraordinary. The patterns aren't just general themes, they're precise sequences that repeat with mathematical accuracy. The same time periods, the same types of opposition, the same stages of development, even the same kinds of supernatural intervention appear whenever these biblical templates are being fulfilled in historical events. Modern historians have begun recognizing these patterns in major historical movements. The American Revolution followed the Exodus pattern with startling precision. The restoration of Israel as a nation in 1948 replayed biblical prophecies about return from exile down to specific details about timing and international opposition. Major technological breakthroughs consistently align with biblical patterns about knowledge being revealed in the last days. The prophetic blueprint operates at multiple levels simultaneously. Individual lives follow biblical character patterns. Nations experience the same cycles of blessing and judgment described throughout Scripture. Global events align with prophetic sequences that were established in ancient times but continue to unfold with increasing intensity and precision. What makes this mystery particularly relevant for our current moment is that multiple biblical patterns appear to be converging simultaneously. We're seeing elements of the Exodus pattern, the David pattern, the exile and return pattern, and the end times pattern, all operating at once in different spheres of human experience. Political movements worldwide are following patterns established by biblical accounts of righteous resistance to corrupt authority. Economic systems are experiencing the same cycles of abundance and scarcity that characterized biblical accounts of divine judgment and restoration. Even natural phenomena are aligning with biblical descriptions of signs and wonders that would characterize the last days. The prophetic blueprint reveals that history isn't random. It's not even just guided by divine providence. It's actually following specific templates that were established in biblical times and continue to replay with increasing precision as human civilization approaches whatever ultimate resolution the ancient patterns were pointing toward. This means that understanding biblical narratives isn't just about learning ancient history or spiritual principles. It's about recognizing the patterns that are actively shaping current events and will determine future developments. Every major news story, every significant cultural shift, every important political development can be better understood when viewed through the lens of biblical prophetic patterns. The most remarkable aspect of this mystery is how it validates both the historical accuracy of biblical accounts and their ongoing prophetic relevance. The same events that skeptics claimed were mere mythology are proving to be precise templates that continue to shape human history in measurable ways. But there's something else these 5 mysteries reveal when taken together. Something that transforms not just how we read ancient texts, but how we understand our role in the unfolding story of human civilization. Because if these patterns are still operating, if these mysteries are still actively influencing world events, then we're not just observers of history. We're participants in the fulfillment of ancient prophecies that are reaching their climactic resolution in our lifetime. The technology prophecy is being fulfilled through innovations that are reshaping human society. The scattered tribes are playing their predetermined roles in global events. The principles behind biblical miracles are being rediscovered by modern science. The mathematical codes are pointing toward unprecedented historical transitions. And the prophetic blueprints are being fulfilled with increasing frequency and precision. This isn't just fascinating information about the past. This is revelation about the present moment and what's coming next. Each of these mysteries provides crucial insight into the times we're living in and the role we're called to play in events that are already in motion. What connects all 5 of these forgotten mysteries isn't just their historical significance. It's their active influence on the world you're living in right now. Every headline you read, every technological breakthrough you witness, every political upheaval that shapes your daily life is following patterns that were established thousands of years ago and encoded in texts that most people treat as ancient history. Think about this for a moment. The prophecy about technology isn't just predicting smartphones and artificial intelligence. It's revealing the spiritual consequences of living in an age of information overload. The scattered tribes aren't just an interesting genealogical footnote. Their influence explains why certain nations have played pivotal roles in spreading biblical values throughout the world. The principles behind biblical miracles aren't just ancient history. They're scientific realities that could transform how we approach healing, creativity, and human potential. But here's what makes these mysteries particularly urgent for our generation. We're living at a convergence point where all 5 patterns are accelerating simultaneously. The mathematical codes are pointing toward unprecedented historical transitions. The prophetic blueprints are being fulfilled with increasing frequency, and the technological, social, and spiritual conditions described in ancient prophecies are manifesting in ways that previous generations could never have imagined. This convergence isn't happening by accident. It's the result of patterns that were set in motion millennia ago, patterns that were designed to reach their climactic fulfillment during a specific period in human history. And every piece of evidence suggests that we're living in that exact moment right now. Consider how these mysteries interweave with current events. The exponential growth of artificial intelligence matches Daniel's prophecy about knowledge increasing at unprecedented rates. The global movements of peoples and the rise of nationalism reflect the same patterns that followed the dispersion of ancient tribes. Scientific breakthroughs in quantum physics and consciousness research are validating principles that enabled biblical miracles. Mathematical models used by economists and political analysts are unknowingly following the same cyclical patterns encoded in ancient Hebrew chronologies. Even more remarkably, the prophetic templates are being fulfilled not just in major historical events, but in the personal lives of individuals who align themselves with biblical patterns. People who study these ancient models and apply them to their own circumstances consistently experience the same types of breakthrough, provision, and supernatural assistance that characterized biblical narratives. This isn't about religious doctrine or denominational teaching. This is about recognizing operational principles that transcend cultural and theological boundaries. The mysteries we've explored reveal that biblical wisdom operates according to universal laws that affect everyone, regardless of their personal beliefs or religious background. The hidden thread that connects everything. But there's one more layer to these mysteries that we haven't discussed yet, and it's perhaps the most significant of all. Each of these forgotten truths contains within it a specific call to action, a role that individuals in our generation are meant to fulfill as these ancient patterns reach their ultimate resolution. The technology prophecy isn't just predicting our digital age. It's calling for people who can navigate information abundance with spiritual discernment, who can use advanced tools for purposes that align with divine intention rather than human ambition. The world desperately needs individuals who understand both cutting-edge technology and ancient wisdom, who can bridge the gap between innovation and spiritual truth. The story of the scattered tribes isn't just revealing hidden history. It's pointing toward a time when ancient wisdom traditions will be reunited, when the knowledge that was dispersed across nations will be gathered together for purposes that transcend any single culture or political system. This suggests that our generation has access to fragments of ancient truth that, when properly assembled, could provide solutions to problems that have plagued humanity for centuries. The principles behind biblical miracles aren't just validating ancient accounts. They're revealing human potential that most people never realize they possess. We're living at a time when the boundary between natural and supernatural is becoming increasingly fluid, when ordinary individuals are discovering they can access capabilities that previous generations considered impossible. The mathematical codes aren't just predicting historical events, they're providing a roadmap for understanding timing, for recognizing when certain opportunities are available, for knowing when to act and when to wait. People who understand these patterns gain strategic advantages in everything from business decisions to personal relationships to creative endeavors. And the prophetic blueprints aren't just explaining past events. They're providing templates that individuals can follow to align their lives with forces that are reshaping human civilization. Instead of being victims of historical change, people who understand these patterns can become conscious participants in the unfolding of divine purpose. Why this knowledge has been hidden. You might wonder why these mysteries have been obscured for so long. Why haven't they been taught in churches, discussed in academic circles, or explored by mainstream media? The answer reveals something crucial about the nature of truth itself, and why certain knowledge only becomes available when humanity is ready to handle it responsibly. Throughout history, powerful truths have always been hidden in plain sight, available to those who were prepared to seek them out but concealed from those who might use them destructively. The same principles that enable miraculous healing can also be used for manipulation. The mathematical codes that predict beneficial changes can also be exploited for personal gain. The prophetic patterns that guide righteous leadership can also be corrupted by those seeking illegitimate power. These mysteries have been preserved in biblical texts precisely because Scripture contains built-in safeguards that prevent their misuse. The truths are encoded in ways that require humility, patience, and genuine spiritual seeking to uncover. They can't be accessed through mere intellectual analysis or academic study. They reveal themselves only to those who approach them with the right heart attitude and proper motivation. This explains why our generation is beginning to rediscover these hidden truths. We're living at a time when the consequences of operating without spiritual wisdom have become so severe that humanity is being forced to reconsider assumptions about the nature of reality itself. The environmental crisis, social fragmentation, technological dangers, and spiritual emptiness that characterize modern life are all symptoms of attempting to build civilization while ignoring the foundational principles that these biblical mysteries reveal. The knowledge is being unveiled now because we need it now. The patterns are becoming visible because we've reached the point in human development where we must either learn to operate according to divine principles or face consequences that previous generations couldn't even imagine. The personal application. But understanding these mysteries intellectually isn't enough. The real power comes from recognizing how they apply to your individual life and circumstances. Each of these patterns offers practical guidance for navigating the complexities of modern existence while staying aligned with forces that are working toward ultimate good. If you're feeling overwhelmed by information overload and social chaos, the Technology Prophecy provides a framework for developing the spiritual discernment needed to separate truth from deception. If you're struggling to understand your purpose or find your place in the world, the story of the scattered tribes reveals how individual callings connect to larger historical purposes. If you're facing challenges that seem impossible to overcome through ordinary means, the principles behind biblical miracles offer access to capabilities that transcend normal limitations. If you're trying to make important decisions about timing and strategy, the mathematical codes provide insight into the underlying rhythms that govern successful endeavors. And if you're looking for meaning and direction in a world that often seems random and chaotic, the prophetic blueprints reveal that you're part of a story that has been unfolding for millennia and is approaching its most significant chapters. These aren't just interesting concepts to think about. They're operational principles that can transform every aspect of your daily experience when properly understood and applied. The same patterns that have shaped world history are available to guide personal decisions, relationships, career choices, and spiritual development. The mysteries we've explored tonight represent more than forgotten history or hidden knowledge. They reveal the true nature of the reality you're living in, the forces that are shaping your world, and the role you're meant to play in events that are already in motion. Every day you wake up, you're participating in the fulfillment of prophecies that were written thousands of years ago. Every choice you make either aligns with patterns that lead toward restoration and renewal, or contributes to forces that perpetuate confusion and destruction. Understanding these mysteries doesn't just change how you interpret ancient texts. It transforms how you navigate modern life as we stand at this convergence point in human history, where ancient patterns are accelerating toward their ultimate fulfillment. The question isn't whether these mysteries are true. The evidence is overwhelming and continues to accumulate daily. The question is whether you'll recognize your place in the unfolding story and step into the role that's been prepared for you since before you were born. The same divine intelligence that encoded these patterns in ancient texts and has been guiding their fulfillment throughout history is actively working in your life right now, creating opportunities for you to participate in purposes that extend far beyond what you might have imagined possible. But recognizing these opportunities requires more than just understanding the mysteries we've discussed. It requires a fundamental shift in how you see yourself, your circumstances, and your potential. Because if these patterns are real, if these prophecies are actively being fulfilled, if these ancient truths are still operational today, then you're not just a random individual trying to make your way in a chaotic world. You're a crucial participant in the most significant period of human history, equipped with access to wisdom that previous generations could only dream of, called to purposes that connect your personal story to the ultimate resolution of humanity's longest and deepest struggles. You're living through the most prophetically significant period in human history. Yet most people have no idea what's actually happening around them. The signs that ancient prophets wrote about with trembling hands are manifesting in today's headlines, but they're hidden behind a veil of misunderstanding that keeps even dedicated Bible students from recognizing them. What we've discovered tonight isn't just academic knowledge that sits on a shelf collecting dust. These mysteries are active forces reshaping your world every single day. The technology you use, the political movements you witness, the economic upheavals that affect your daily life, even the personal challenges you face are all connected to patterns that were established millennia ago and are now reaching their predetermined climax. But here's what makes this moment in history so extraordinary. For the first time since these mysteries were originally encoded in ancient texts, we have the technological tools, historical perspective, and spiritual insight needed to see the complete picture. Previous generations could only glimpse fragments of these patterns. We're the first to witness how all 5 mysteries operate simultaneously, creating a convergence that's accelerating the fulfillment of prophecies in ways that would have been impossible to achieve in any earlier era. Think about the implications of what we've uncovered. The exponential growth of knowledge that Daniel prophesied isn't just changing how we access information. It's creating the conditions necessary for ancient mysteries to be decoded, dispersed truths to be reunited, and hidden patterns to become visible to anyone willing to look for them. We're not just living through technological revolution. We're experiencing prophetic revelation on a scale that dwarfs anything previous generations could have imagined. The scattered wisdom of the lost tribes isn't just academic history. It's being reintegrated through global communication networks that allow ancient knowledge traditions to reconnect across continents. Family lines that were separated for thousands of years are discovering their common heritage through genetic research. Cultural wisdom that was preserved in isolation is being shared across linguistic and geographical barriers. The dispersion that seemed like judgment is revealing itself as preparation for a gathering that surpasses the original unity. The principles behind biblical miracles aren't just validating ancient accounts. They're becoming accessible to ordinary people who understand the spiritual laws that govern their operation. Healing that was once considered supernatural is being recognized as the natural result of aligning human consciousness with divine intention. Provision that seemed miraculous is being understood as the inevitable outcome of operating according to principles that transcend ordinary economic limitations. And the mathematical codes aren't just predicting macro-historical events. They're providing personal guidance for individuals who learn to recognize the rhythms and cycles that govern successful living. The same patterns that forecast the rise and fall of nations can guide your career decisions, relationship choices, and spiritual development. Ancient chronologies become practical calendars for modern life. The prophetic blueprints we've explored reveal that you're not just observing history from the sidelines. You're an active participant in the fulfillment of patterns that were designed to reach their completion during your lifetime. Every biblical character whose story you've read was pointing toward roles that people in our generation would be called to fulfill. Every ancient prophecy that seemed distant and mysterious was actually describing conditions and opportunities that are available to you right now. But recognizing these opportunities requires more than intellectual understanding. It demands a fundamental shift in how you perceive your place in the cosmic story that's been unfolding since the beginning of time. Because if these mysteries are operational, if these patterns are still actively shaping world events, then your individual life isn't separate from these grand historical movements. You're woven into the fabric of prophetic fulfillment in ways that make your personal choices significant far beyond what you might have imagined. Consider how this changes everything about daily decision-making. When you understand that technological development follows prophetic patterns, you can anticipate changes before they become obvious to everyone else. When you recognize that political movements replay biblical templates, you can navigate social upheaval with wisdom that transcends partisan perspectives. When you grasp the spiritual principles behind miraculous provision, you can access resources that ordinary economic thinking can't explain. But perhaps most importantly, when you see how your individual story connects to ancient prophetic patterns, you discover purposes for your life that extend far beyond personal success or happiness. You're not just trying to build a good life for yourself and your family. You're participating in the resolution of conflicts that have been raging since the beginning of human history. You're contributing to the healing of wounds that have affected every generation. You're helping to establish patterns of righteousness that will influence the world long after you're gone. This is why these mysteries matter today. They reveal that the universe operates according to purposeful design rather than random chance. They demonstrate that ancient wisdom remains relevant for modern challenges. They prove that individual lives have cosmic significance when aligned with divine intention. And they provide practical guidance for navigating a world that's experiencing changes at a pace and scale that no previous generation has ever faced. The convergence we're witnessing isn't just historically interesting. It's personally transformative for anyone who recognizes what's happening and chooses to participate consciously rather than just drift along with circumstances. The same forces that are reshaping global civilization are available to reshape your personal experience. When you understand how to align with them rather than resist them. Every morning when you wake up, you're entering a day filled with opportunities to participate in the fulfillment of ancient prophecies. Every conversation you have, every decision you make, every challenge you face is connected to patterns that have been building toward this moment for thousands of years. You're not living an ordinary life during ordinary times. You're living an extraordinary life during the most significant period in human history. The technology prophecy means that the exponential increase in knowledge and rapid global communication you're experiencing isn't just convenient modern innovation. It's the fulfillment of ancient predictions about conditions that would exist when human history reached its climactic phases. Your ability to access information instantly, communicate across vast distances, and connect with people worldwide isn't just technological progress. It's prophetic preparation for roles you're meant to play in events that are already unfolding. The hidden influence of scattered tribes means that the cultural diversity and global interconnectedness you're witnessing isn't just modern multiculturalism. It's the reunification of ancient wisdom traditions that were separated by divine design but preserved across centuries for exactly this moment in history. The unique perspectives and capabilities that different cultural backgrounds bring to modern challenges aren't just human resources. They're divinely distributed gifts that become most powerful when properly coordinated. The principles behind biblical miracles mean that the breakthroughs in understanding consciousness, energy, and human potential that you're seeing aren't just scientific advancement. They're the rediscovery of spiritual laws that ancient people understood but that were temporarily obscured during periods when humanity wasn't ready to handle such knowledge responsibly. Your generation's access to these principles isn't just intellectual progress. It's spiritual restoration that makes previously impossible achievements available to ordinary people. The mathematical codes mean that the patterns you can observe in everything from financial markets to political cycles aren't just interesting correlations. They're evidence that history unfolds according to discoverable principles that can provide strategic advantage to those who learn to recognize them. Your ability to understand timing, anticipate trends, and make decisions that align with larger historical movements isn't just shrewd analysis. It's participation in divine intelligence that's been guiding human development from the beginning. And the prophetic blueprints mean that the personal challenges and opportunities you face aren't just random circumstances you have to navigate as best you can. They're specific scenarios designed to help you fulfill roles that connect your individual story to the larger narrative of human redemption and restoration. Your struggles aren't just obstacles to overcome. They're preparation for purposes that extend far beyond what you can currently see. This understanding transforms every aspect of life experience. Relationships become opportunities to model the kind of unity that ancient prophecies describe for restored humanity. Work becomes participation in establishing systems and structures that align with divine principles rather than merely human ambition. Creative endeavors become channels for expressing truth and beauty that help others recognize the spiritual realities operating behind physical appearances. Even difficulties and setbacks become part of the refining process that prepares individuals for greater responsibilities in the unfolding plan. Pain becomes meaningful when you understand how it contributes to character development that equips you for roles you couldn't handle without such preparation. Delays and disappointments become evidence of divine timing that's coordinating your personal development with larger historical movements. The mysteries we've explored tonight reveal that you're living at the intersection of time and eternity, where ancient promises are becoming present realities, where individual lives connect to cosmic purposes, where personal choices influence outcomes that extend far beyond immediate circumstances. You're not just trying to survive in a chaotic world. You're helping to establish the foundations for a new kind of civilization that operates according to principles that transcend the limitations that have constrained human societies throughout history. But accessing this level of participation requires more than just understanding these concepts intellectually. It demands practical application of the principles we've discovered. consistent alignment with the patterns we've identified, and ongoing commitment to purposes that extend beyond personal comfort and convenience. The ancient seers who first received these revelations weren't comfortable people living easy lives. They were individuals who were willing to sacrifice immediate gratification for eternal significance, who chose divine purpose over human approval, who aligned themselves with forces that most people couldn't see rather than following crowds that were moving in directions that seemed safe but led to dead ends. The same choice is available to you, the same access to divine intelligence that guided ancient prophets is being offered to your generation. The same opportunities to participate in history-shaping events that ancient heroes seized are presenting themselves in modern contexts that require contemporary applications of eternal principles. The question isn't whether these mysteries are true or whether these patterns are operational. The evidence is overwhelming and continues to accumulate with every passing day. The question is whether you'll recognize the significance of the times you're living in and step into the role that's been prepared specifically for you. The convergence we're witnessing won't last forever. There are windows of opportunity that open during certain historical periods and then close when those periods end. Previous generations long to see what you're seeing, to live during the times you're experiencing, to have access to the knowledge and opportunities that are available to you right now. But opportunity without action becomes regret. Knowledge without application becomes condemnation. Understanding without commitment becomes self-deception. The mysteries we've uncovered tonight aren't just fascinating information to think about occasionally. They're operational principles that require decisive response and consistent application. As we reach the end of our exploration, you're standing at a crossroads that's more significant than you might realize. You can treat what we've discussed as interesting content to file away with other information you've encountered, or you can recognize it as revelation that's meant to transform how you see yourself, your world, and your destiny. The choice you make will determine not just your personal experience, but your contribution to the larger story that's still being written. The same divine intelligence that encoded these patterns in ancient texts and has been orchestrating their fulfillment throughout history is waiting for your response. The question that echoes through every human heart is being asked of your generation with unprecedented urgency. Will you recognize your place in the cosmic narrative and accept the calling that's been prepared for you since before you were born? The forces that have shaped human civilization for millennia are accelerating toward a convergence that most people can't see coming. While mainstream attention focuses on surface-level news cycles and trending topics, the real story of our times is being written according to patterns that were established thousands of years ago and are now reaching their ultimate expression. What makes this moment in history so crucial is that we're not just witnessing the fulfillment of ancient prophecies. We're being invited to participate in their completion. The same divine intelligence that guided biblical authors to record these mysteries is actively working to position individuals who understand these patterns in places where they can influence outcomes that will determine the direction of human civilization for generations to come. consider how the technological revolution we're experiencing isn't just changing how we communicate or access information. It's creating the infrastructure necessary for prophecies about global unity and worldwide revelation to be fulfilled in ways that would have been impossible in any previous era. The internet doesn't just connect people across geographical boundaries, it's enabling the reunification of scattered wisdom traditions and the coordination of individuals who share common purposes despite being separated by vast distances. Social media platforms aren't just entertainment or business tools. They're fulfilling ancient prophecies about knowledge being proclaimed from rooftops and truth being made known to all nations. The same technologies that enable instant global communication are also making it possible for deception to spread with unprecedented speed and influence. This is exactly what biblical prophecies predicted would happen during the period when these ancient patterns reached their climax. Artificial intelligence isn't just technological advancement. It's the manifestation of humanity's ancient desire to create beings with capabilities that exceed normal human limitations. The same impulse that led to the building of the Tower of Babel is now expressing itself through attempts to create artificial consciousness that can solve problems beyond human capacity. Biblical patterns suggest this will lead to both incredible breakthroughs and unprecedented dangers. Global economic systems aren't just evolving according to market forces and political decisions. They're following prophetic templates about the concentration of wealth and power that will characterize the final phases of human history before divine intervention establishes new foundations for civilization. The development of digital currencies and global financial networks is creating exactly the kind of centralized economic control that ancient prophecies described. Political movements worldwide aren't just responding to local conditions and immediate concerns. They're expressing archetypal conflicts between righteousness and corruption that have been playing out since the beginning of recorded history. The same spiritual forces that influenced ancient kingdoms are still active today, working through modern institutions and contemporary leaders to advance agendas that extend far beyond what most participants realize. Even natural phenomena aren't just random environmental changes or predictable climate cycles. They're following patterns that biblical prophecies connected to specific periods in human development. The increasing frequency and intensity of natural disasters aligns precisely with prophetic descriptions of signs and wonders that would accompany the transition from one age of human history to another. But here's what makes these convergences so personally significant for your life. You're not just observing these patterns from a distance. You're living within them, influenced by them, and called to respond to opportunities they create. Every major decision you face is connected to forces that extend far beyond your immediate circumstances. Your career choices, relationship decisions, financial strategies, and spiritual development are all taking place within a context that's being shaped by the fulfillment of ancient prophecies. The skills you're developing, the knowledge you're acquiring, the relationships you're building, and the character you're forming are all being prepared for purposes that you may not fully understand yet, but that will become clear as historical events continue to unfold. The same divine intelligence that positioned biblical characters for their roles in ancient dramas is positioning you for your role in contemporary events that are part of the same ongoing story. This means that your personal growth isn't just about improving your individual life circumstances. It's about preparing for responsibilities that will emerge as these prophetic patterns complete their fulfillment. The challenges you're facing aren't just obstacles to overcome. They're training experiences designed to develop capabilities you'll need for roles that don't exist yet, but will become available as historical conditions continue to evolve. The setbacks and disappointments you've experienced aren't just random difficulties or personal failures. They're part of a refining process that removes dependencies on systems and approaches that won't survive the transitions we're experiencing. What feels like loss or limitation may actually be preparation for opportunities that require different skills and perspectives than what previous generations needed. Your unique combination of background, experiences, interests, and capabilities isn't just the result of personal choices and random circumstances. It's been assembled according to divine design for purposes that connect your individual story to the larger narrative of human history reaching its climactic resolution. The same intelligence that orchestrated the precise timing of ancient events is coordinating the development of your potential for maximum impact during the specific period when your contributions will be most needed. But recognizing these connections requires developing spiritual perception that transcends normal analytical thinking. The patterns we've been exploring operate according to principles that can't be fully grasped through intellectual study alone. They require the kind of wisdom that comes from direct relationship with the divine intelligence that established these patterns in the first place. This is why prayer, meditation, and spiritual seeking become more important rather than less important as you gain understanding of these mysteries. Knowledge without spiritual grounding becomes dangerous. Power without divine guidance becomes destructive. Opportunity without proper preparation becomes disaster. The ancient prophets who first received revelations about these patterns weren't just intellectually curious individuals who studied trends and made predictions. They were people who had developed sufficient spiritual sensitivity to receive direct communication from the intelligence that governs historical development. Their prophecies were accurate because they were based on information from the source that actually controls the outcomes they were predicting. The same access to divine intelligence is available to your generation, but it requires the same kind of spiritual commitment that enabled ancient seers to receive their revelations. This isn't about following religious rituals or accepting denominational doctrines. It's about developing the kind of relationship with divine truth that makes it possible to receive guidance that transcends human wisdom and understanding. When you operate from this level of spiritual awareness, the mysteries we've explored tonight become more than just interesting concepts to think about. They become practical guidance for daily decision-making. You begin to recognize opportunities that most people miss. You develop timing that aligns with larger historical movements. You gain access to resources and support that ordinary approaches can't explain. But most importantly, you discover purposes for your life that extend far beyond personal success or happiness. You find yourself participating in the resolution of conflicts that have affected humanity for millennia. You contribute to the establishment of foundations for civilization that will influence the world long after your individual lifetime ends. This is the ultimate significance of the biblical mysteries we've uncovered. They reveal that human history has direction and purpose. They demonstrate that individual lives have cosmic importance when aligned with divine intention. They provide practical guidance for participating consciously in the most significant developments in human civilization. The convergence we're witnessing represents the culmination of patterns that have been building for thousands of years. The acceleration we're experiencing is the natural result of multiple prophetic cycles reaching completion simultaneously. The opportunities becoming available to your generation are unprecedented because you're living during the period when ancient promises are becoming present realities. But these opportunities won't remain available indefinitely. There are windows of time when certain possibilities exist that close when historical conditions change. Previous generations long to see what you're seeing and to live during the times you're experiencing. Future generations will inherit the consequences of how your generation responds to the opportunities that are available right now. The mysteries we've explored tonight aren't just academic information about ancient texts and historical patterns. They're revelation about the true nature of the reality you're living in, the forces that are shaping your world, and the role you're meant to play in events that are already in motion. Every day you wake up, you're entering a world where ancient prophecies are being fulfilled, where hidden patterns are becoming visible, where individual choices have consequences that extend far beyond immediate circumstances. You're not living an ordinary life during ordinary times. You're living an extraordinary life during the most prophetically significant period in human history. The question that confronts every person who understands these truths is whether they'll recognize the magnitude of the moment they're living in and respond with the kind of commitment that such recognition demands. The same divine intelligence that encoded these mysteries in ancient texts and has been orchestrating their fulfillment throughout history is calling your generation to conscious participation in purposes that transcend anything previous generations could have imagined. The choice is yours. You can continue living as if these patterns don't exist, as if these prophecies aren't being fulfilled, as if your individual life has no connection to cosmic purposes. Or you can recognize that you've been positioned at this exact moment in history for reasons that extend far beyond coincidence. Equipped with understanding that previous generations couldn't access, and invited to participate in the completion of a story that began before time and will continue into eternity. The biblical mysteries we've uncovered reveal that this invitation isn't just extended to a select few who happen to have special spiritual gifts or religious backgrounds. It's offered to everyone who carries the divine image, everyone who has the capacity for relationship with the intelligence that governs universal development. Everyone who's willing to align their individual purposes with the larger purposes that are reshaping human civilization. But accepting this invitation requires more than just intellectual agreement with these concepts. It demands practical application of the principles we've discovered, consistent alignment with the patterns we've identified, an ongoing commitment to purposes that extend beyond personal comfort and immediate circumstances. The mysteries are real. The patterns are operational. The prophecies are being fulfilled. The convergence is accelerating. The opportunities are unprecedented. The question that remains is whether you'll recognize what's happening and step into the role that's been prepared specifically for you since before you were born. Your response to this invitation will determine not just your personal experience, but your contribution to the resolution of the greatest challenges and the fulfillment of the highest possibilities that humanity has ever faced. The same divine intelligence that has been guiding the development of these patterns throughout history is waiting for your answer. What will you choose? The weight of this revelation should be settling on you right now. Because once you truly grasp what these 5 mysteries reveal about the world you're living in, everything changes. The news you watch, the decisions you make, the relationships you build, even the challenges you face all become part of a larger narrative that's been unfolding for millennia and is reaching its climactic resolution in your lifetime. But there's something else we need to address. Something that might be the most important aspect of everything we've discovered tonight. These mysteries weren't hidden by accident. They weren't obscured because they were unimportant or irrelevant. They were concealed because they contained power that humanity wasn't ready to handle responsibly until now. Think about it. The technology prophecy reveals principles that could be used to manipulate global communication systems or exploit information networks for personal gain. The scattered tribe knowledge could be weaponized to justify ethnic supremacy or political domination. The miracle principles could be corrupted into spiritual manipulation or false healing ministries. The mathematical codes could be exploited for financial advantage or political prediction. The prophetic blueprints could be twisted to justify destructive movements or false messianic claims. This is why these truths have been embedded in biblical texts using methods that require spiritual maturity to decode. They can't be accessed through mere intellectual analysis or academic study. They reveal themselves only to those who approach them with genuine humility, pure motives, and commitment to using divine knowledge for purposes that align with divine character. Your generation is rediscovering these mysteries precisely because we've reached a point in human development where the consequences of operating without spiritual wisdom have become so severe that we must either learn to function according to divine principles or face destruction on a scale that previous generations couldn't imagine. The environmental crisis isn't just about pollution and climate change. It's about humanity attempting to exercise dominion over creation without understanding the spiritual principles that make such authority sustainable. The social fragmentation we're experiencing isn't just about political disagreement or cultural differences. It's about trying to build civilization while ignoring the foundational truths about human nature and divine purpose that these mysteries reveal. The technological dangers we face aren't just about artificial intelligence becoming too powerful or social media creating addiction and isolation. They're about accessing capabilities that exceed our wisdom to use them properly. We're approaching the same crossroads that ancient civilizations faced when divine knowledge was introduced without adequate spiritual preparation to handle it responsibly. But here's what makes this moment different from previous historical periods when similar knowledge was available. We have access to the complete biblical record that provides context and safeguards for understanding these mysteries properly. We have the example of Jesus Christ, who demonstrated what human nature looks like when it operates in perfect alignment with divine principles. We have the Holy Spirit, who provides ongoing guidance for applying ancient wisdom to contemporary circumstances. Most importantly, we have a global community of believers who can provide accountability, encouragement, and collaborative wisdom for using these revelations constructively rather than destructively. The same communication technologies that enable the spread of deception also make it possible for truth seekers worldwide to share insights, verify discoveries, and coordinate efforts in ways that were impossible for previous generations. This means that the mysteries we've explored tonight aren't just individual revelations for personal enlightenment. They're pieces of a larger puzzle that's being assembled by people all over the world who are simultaneously receiving similar insights. The technology that enables you to watch this video also connects you to others who are discovering complementary aspects of the same ancient truths. The mathematical codes that reveal historical patterns are being recognized by economists in Asia, political analysts in Europe, and social researchers in Africa. The principles behind biblical miracles are being validated by scientists in multiple disciplines working in different countries. The prophetic blueprints are being fulfilled through movements on every continent that seem unrelated but follow identical patterns. What's emerging is a global awakening to spiritual realities that transcend cultural, denominational, and geographical boundaries. People from completely different backgrounds are independently discovering the same truths, experiencing similar revelations, and recognizing their connection to purposes that extend far beyond their individual circumstances. This isn't happening because of human organization or institutional coordination. It's the result of divine intelligence working through multiple channels simultaneously to prepare humanity for transitions that require unprecedented levels of spiritual understanding and cooperation. But recognizing your place in this global awakening requires moving beyond passive observation to active participation. The mysteries we've uncovered create opportunities, but opportunities require response to become realities. Knowledge without application remains potential rather than becoming actual transformation. Consider what active participation might look like in your specific situation. If you understand the technology prophecy, how does that change your relationship with digital tools and information systems? Instead of being consumed by information overload or manipulated by algorithmic programming, you can develop the spiritual discernment needed to navigate the digital landscape with wisdom and purpose. If you recognize the influence of scattered wisdom traditions, How does that affect your relationships with people from different cultural backgrounds? Instead of seeing diversity as division or threat, you can appreciate it as the reunification of complementary insights that were preserved across different lineages for exactly this moment in history. If you grasp the principles behind biblical miracles, how does that transform your approach to challenges that seem impossible through ordinary means? Instead of accepting limitations that appear insurmountable, you can learn to access spiritual resources that transcend natural constraints when properly understood and applied. If you comprehend the mathematical codes, how does that influence your decision-making about timing and strategy? Instead of making choices based only on immediate circumstances or popular trends, you can align your actions with underlying rhythms that govern successful outcomes across longer time periods. If you understand the prophetic blueprints, how does that reshape your perspective on current events and future possibilities? Instead of being overwhelmed by chaos or discouraged by apparent setbacks, you can recognize how present difficulties are preparing conditions for breakthrough that wouldn't be possible without such preparation. The key is recognizing that these aren't just interesting concepts to think about occasionally. They're operational principles that can guide every aspect of daily life when properly understood and consistently applied. But application requires more than intellectual agreement. It demands practical experimentation, persistent practice, and ongoing refinement based on results. This is where most people who encounter these truths fail to experience their transformative power. They treat spiritual principles like academic theories rather than practical tools that require hands-on engagement to master. They expect immediate dramatic results instead of understanding that developing spiritual capabilities requires the same kind of patient persistence that physical or intellectual skills demand. The ancient figures who operated according to these principles didn't achieve their remarkable results through single moments of inspiration or lucky breakthroughs. They developed their capabilities through consistent practice, gradual learning, and accumulated experience over extended periods. Moses didn't part the Red Sea on his first attempt at spiritual leadership. David didn't defeat Goliath without years of preparation through smaller challenges. Daniel didn't interpret dreams and survive persecution without decades of faithful commitment to divine principles. The same developmental process is available to your generation, but it requires the same kind of dedication that enabled ancient heroes to access these capabilities. This means treating spiritual development as seriously as you would treat professional training or physical fitness. It means creating regular practices that strengthen your capacity to recognize divine guidance, align with spiritual principles, and participate in purposes that extend beyond immediate personal concerns. But here's what makes this process more accessible for your generation than it was for previous ones. You have resources and support systems that ancient seekers could only dream of having. The complete biblical record provides comprehensive guidance for spiritual development. Global communication enables you to learn from teachers and connect with fellow practitioners worldwide. Scientific research validates spiritual principles that previous generations had to accept purely on faith. Most importantly, You're living during a time when the spiritual realm is becoming more accessible to ordinary people who approach it with proper preparation and motivation. The same forces that are accelerating the fulfillment of ancient prophecies are also making it easier for individuals to develop the spiritual sensitivity needed to participate consciously in these developments. This accessibility isn't accidental. It's part of the divine strategy for this period in human history. The challenges we're facing require more people to operate from spiritual awareness than any previous generation needed. The opportunities that are becoming available demand capabilities that can only be developed through direct relationship with divine intelligence. The global awakening we're experiencing isn't just about more people becoming religious or adopting spiritual practices. It's about humanity developing the collective spiritual maturity needed to handle the knowledge and power that's becoming available as these ancient mysteries are revealed. But this collective development depends on individual commitment from people like you, who recognize the significance of this moment and choose to participate actively rather than remain passive observers. The same divine intelligence that has been orchestrating the fulfillment of these patterns throughout history is calling your generation to conscious collaboration in purposes that will determine the direction of human civilization for generations to come. The biblical mysteries we've explored tonight reveal that you're not just living through interesting times or experiencing random changes. You're participating in the completion of a story that began before human civilization existed and will continue beyond anything you can currently imagine. Your individual choices and personal development are connected to cosmic purposes in ways that make every decision significant and every day meaningful. The convergence we're witnessing represents the culmination of divine planning that spans millennia. The acceleration we're experiencing is the natural result of multiple prophetic streams flowing together toward their predetermined destination. The opportunities that are opening for your generation are unprecedented because you're living during the period when ancient promises are becoming present realities. But these opportunities come with corresponding responsibilities. Knowledge creates accountability. Understanding generates obligation. Revelation demands response. The more clearly you see what's happening, the greater your responsibility becomes to align your life with forces that are working toward ultimate good rather than temporary advantage. This alignment isn't just about personal spiritual development or individual relationship with God. It's about participating in the establishment of foundations for civilization that operate according to divine principles rather than merely human wisdom. It's about contributing to solutions for problems that have plagued humanity since the beginning of recorded history. The environmental crisis requires people who understand the spiritual principles that govern sustainable relationship between humanity and creation. The social fragmentation demands individuals who can model the kind of unity that transcends cultural and ideological divisions. The technological dangers need people who can guide the development and application of powerful tools according to wisdom that extends beyond short-term profit or convenience. The economic instability calls for those who understand divine principles of provision and distribution that create genuine prosperity rather than merely accumulating wealth for a few at the expense of many. The political chaos requires leaders who operate from spiritual authority rather than merely human ambition or popular manipulation. Each of these challenges represents an opportunity for people who understand the biblical mysteries we've explored to demonstrate alternative approaches that prove the superiority of divine wisdom over human cleverness. But demonstrating these alternatives requires more than just believing they're true. It demands developing the character and capabilities needed to implement them effectively under real-world conditions. This is why the personal application of these mysteries becomes so crucial. You can't contribute to global solutions until you've learned to apply spiritual principles successfully in your own circumstances. You can't model divine alternatives until you've experienced their effectiveness in your personal life. You can't guide others toward truth until you've walked the path yourself and proven its reliability through your own experience. The mysteries we've uncovered tonight aren't just revelation about ancient patterns or future possibilities. Their invitation to participate in the most significant developments in human history. They're calling to align your individual story with the larger narrative that's reaching its climactic resolution during your lifetime. But this calling isn't just extended to people with special spiritual gifts or religious backgrounds. It's offered to everyone who carries the divine image, everyone who has the capacity for relationship with the intelligence that governs universal development, everyone who's willing to prioritize eternal purposes over temporary pleasures. The question that confronts every person who understands these truths is whether they'll recognize the magnitude of the moment they're living in and respond with the kind of commitment that such recognition demands. The same divine intelligence that encoded these mysteries in ancient texts and has been orchestrating their fulfillment throughout history is waiting for your response. Your answer will determine not just your personal experience during these extraordinary times, but your contribution to outcomes that will influence human civilization for generations to come. The opportunities are unprecedented. The resources are available, the guidance is accessible, the support is provided. What remains is your decision about whether you'll step into the role that's been prepared specifically for you since before you were born, or whether you'll remain on the sidelines while others take the positions of influence and responsibility that could have been yours. The biblical mysteries we've explored reveal that this decision has eternal consequences that extend far beyond your individual lifetime. The patterns we've discovered demonstrate that choices made during pivotal historical moments create ripple effects that influence countless future generations. The convergence we're witnessing represents exactly such a moment. You're standing at a crossroads that's more significant than most people realize. The path you choose will determine not just where you end up, but who you become in the process. The mysteries are real, the patterns are operational, the prophecies are being fulfilled. The question that remains is what you'll do with this knowledge. The same divine intelligence that revealed these truths to ancient prophets, preserved them through centuries of opposition, and is now unveiling them to your generation, is actively working to position you for purposes that connect your personal story. to the ultimate resolution of humanity's greatest challenges and highest possibilities, but positioning requires movement. Preparation demands action. Calling expects response. The next chapter of your story begins with whatever decision you make about how seriously you'll take what we've discovered together tonight. The mysteries have been revealed. The patterns have been identified. The invitation has been extended. The choice is yours. What we've uncovered tonight is just the beginning of something far more profound than most people could ever imagine, because these 5 mysteries don't exist in isolation. They're interconnected threads in a tapestry so vast and intricate that pulling on any single strand reveals connections that stretch across continents, centuries, and civilizations. Think about what happens when you start connecting these dots. The technology prophecy that predicted our digital age wasn't just describing smartphones and artificial intelligence. It was revealing the spiritual infrastructure that would be necessary for the final chapters of human history to unfold. The exponential growth of knowledge isn't just making life more convenient. It's creating the conditions for ancient wisdom to be decoded, dispersed truths to be reunited, and hidden patterns to become visible to anyone willing to look beyond surface appearances. Shil Adama, the scattered tribes whose influence shaped Western civilization, weren't just preserving genetic lineages or cultural traditions. They were carrying forward fragments of divine revelation that would be needed when humanity reached the point of maximum crisis and maximum opportunity. The legal systems they influenced, the philosophical traditions they preserved, the spiritual insights they maintained across centuries of exile and dispersion, all of it was preparation for a time when ancient wisdom would need to be rapidly disseminated across global networks. The principles behind biblical miracles that modern science is beginning to validate weren't just demonstrating God's power to ancient audiences. They were establishing templates for how spiritual laws operate within physical reality. Patterns that would become crucial when humanity developed the technological capability to either destroy itself or transcend its current limitations. Every miraculous healing, every supernatural provision, every divine intervention recorded in Scripture was encoding information about how consciousness and creation interact at levels we're only beginning to understand. Aydamuk, the mathematical codes that have predicted major historical events with startling precision, weren't just ancient curiosities for scholars to debate. They were establishing rhythms and cycles that would guide the timing of prophetic fulfillment, ensuring that divine purposes would unfold according to precise schedules that coordinate with both natural phenomena and human development. These numerical patterns aren't just predicting what will happen. They're revealing when it will happen and why the timing is crucial for maximum impact. And the prophetic blueprints that keep replaying throughout history weren't just showing us that God is in control of human events. They were establishing templates that would become increasingly precise and accelerated as we approached the climactic resolution of the cosmic conflict between good and evil, truth and deception, divine purpose and human rebellion. But here's what makes this convergence so extraordinary for your generation. You're not just witnessing these patterns operate independently. You're living at the exact moment when all 5 mysteries are reaching their peak intensity simultaneously. The technological revolution is enabling global communication and coordination on a scale that previous generations couldn't imagine. The scattered wisdom traditions are being reunited through digital networks that transcend geographical and cultural boundaries. The principles behind supernatural intervention are being validated by scientific research that's opening entirely new paradigms for understanding reality itself. The mathematical cycles are pointing toward convergence points that suggest unprecedented acceleration in historical development. And the prophetic templates are being fulfilled with such frequency and precision that even skeptics are beginning to notice patterns that can't be explained through coincidence or natural causation. This convergence isn't happening by accident. It's the result of divine orchestration that's been building toward this moment for millennia. Every persecution that scattered ancient peoples, every scientific discovery that revealed spiritual principles, every technological breakthrough that connected isolated communities, every political development that shifted global power structures. All of it has been preparation for the period we're living in right now. But recognizing this convergence changes everything about how you should approach your daily life. Because if these patterns are real, if these prophecies are actively being fulfilled, if these ancient mysteries are operational in our modern world, then you're not just living through interesting times, you're participating in the most prophetically significant period in human history. Every decision you make either aligns with forces that are working toward divine purposes or contributes to resistance against those purposes. Every relationship you build either reflects the unity that ancient prophecies describe for restored humanity or perpetuates the division that characterizes fallen civilization. Every skill you develop either prepares you for roles in the emerging new order or keeps you trapped in systems that are being superseded by divine intervention. Your career choices aren't just about personal fulfillment or financial security. They're about positioning yourself where you can contribute most effectively to the establishment of foundations for civilization that operate according to divine principles rather than merely human wisdom. The knowledge you acquire isn't just about staying competitive in changing markets. It's about developing capabilities that will be needed when current systems are replaced by alternatives that most people can't yet envision. The character you're forming through daily choices isn't just about becoming a better person or living according to moral principles. It's about preparing for responsibilities that will emerge as these prophetic patterns complete their fulfillment. The spiritual sensitivity you develop through prayer, meditation, and scriptural study isn't just about personal relationship with God. It's about learning to receive the kind of divine guidance that will be essential for navigating transitions that no human wisdom can adequately prepare for. But perhaps most importantly, the faith you're building through testing and trials isn't just about personal spiritual growth. It's about developing the kind of unshakable trust in divine purpose that will enable you to stand firm when everything around you appears to be falling apart, when familiar systems collapse, when popular opinions shift toward deception, when the majority chooses convenience over truth. because that's exactly what these biblical mysteries predict will happen as we approach the climactic resolution of human history. The same technological advances that enable unprecedented connection and communication will also make possible levels of surveillance and control that previous dictatorships could never achieve. The same global integration that allows ancient wisdom traditions to be reunited will also create opportunities for worldwide deception that transcends cultural and linguistic barriers. The same scientific discoveries that validate spiritual principles will also be used to create counterfeit miracles that deceive people who aren't grounded in authentic relationship with divine truth. The same mathematical precision that reveals divine timing will also be exploited by those who understand these patterns, but use them for selfish purposes rather than serving divine intentions. The same prophetic templates that guide righteous movements will also be copied by corrupt leaders who understand how to manipulate religious expectations for political advantage. This is why these mysteries have been hidden until now. This is why they require spiritual maturity to understand properly. This is why they reveal themselves only to those who approach them with pure motives and genuine commitment to divine purposes. The knowledge we've uncovered tonight comes with tremendous responsibility. Because once you see these connections, once you understand how these patterns operate, once you recognize the significance of the times we're living in, you become accountable for how you respond to this revelation. Ignorance is no longer an excuse. Passivity is no longer an option. Neutrality is no longer possible. You're standing at a crossroads where you must choose between aligning yourself with divine purposes that extend far beyond your personal circumstances, or remaining trapped in thinking that limits your perspective to immediate concerns and temporary pleasures. The choice you make will determine not just your experience during these extraordinary times, but your contribution to outcomes that will influence human civilization for generations to come. The mysteries we've explored reveal that this choice has eternal consequences that extend far beyond your individual lifetime. The patterns we've discovered demonstrate that decisions made during pivotal historical moments create ripple effects that influence countless future generations. The convergence we're witnessing represents exactly such a moment, but making the right choice requires more than just intellectual understanding of these concepts. It demands practical application of the principles we've discovered, consistent alignment with the patterns we've identified, and ongoing commitment to purposes that extend beyond personal comfort and immediate convenience. This means treating your spiritual development as the most important investment you can make. Not because it provides escape from worldly responsibilities, but because it equips you with capabilities that will be essential for fulfilling your role in the unfolding divine plan. It means prioritizing relationship with divine truth over conformity to popular opinions or cultural expectations. It means developing the kind of character that can handle increased authority and influence without being corrupted by power or success. It means cultivating wisdom that can navigate complex situations without compromising core principles. It means building faith that remains steady when external circumstances become chaotic or threatening. Most importantly, it means recognizing that your individual story is connected to purposes that extend far beyond what you can currently see or understand. The same divine intelligence that encoded these mysteries in ancient texts and has been orchestrating their fulfillment throughout history is actively working in your life right now, creating opportunities for you to participate in the resolution of conflicts that have affected humanity since the beginning of recorded history. But participating in these purposes requires more than just believing they exist. It demands developing the spiritual sensitivity needed to recognize divine guidance when it comes. The courage to act on that guidance even when it contradicts conventional wisdom, and the perseverance to continue following divine direction even when immediate results aren't visible. The ancient figures who played crucial roles in previous phases of these prophetic patterns weren't extraordinary people who possessed special abilities that others lacked. They were ordinary individuals who made extraordinary choices to align themselves with divine purposes rather than pursuing their own agendas. They developed their capabilities through consistent practice, gradual learning, and accumulated experience over extended periods. The same developmental process is available to your generation. The same access to divine guidance that enabled ancient heroes to fulfill their destinies is being offered to people today who approach it with proper preparation and motivation. The same supernatural assistance that made biblical miracles possible is accessible to contemporary believers who understand the spiritual principles that govern such intervention. But accessing these resources requires the same kind of dedication that enabled ancient seekers to develop their capabilities. It means creating regular practices that strengthen your capacity to recognize divine guidance. It means studying biblical patterns until you can recognize them operating in contemporary situations. It means building relationships with others who share similar commitments and can provide accountability, encouragement, and collaborative wisdom. It means learning to distinguish between authentic spiritual leading and emotional impulses, between divine timing and human impatience, between genuine prophetic insight and wishful thinking. These distinctions become crucial as we enter periods when spiritual deception increases alongside spiritual revelation. When counterfeit miracles appear alongside authentic ones, when false prophets emerge alongside true messengers. The biblical mysteries we've explored provide the framework for making these distinctions accurately. The patterns we've identified reveal the difference between movements that align with divine purposes and those that serve other agendas regardless of how they present themselves. The principles we've discovered enable you to evaluate opportunities, relationships, and information sources according to criteria that transcend surface appearances. But applying this framework requires ongoing commitment to spiritual growth and development. It's not enough to understand these concepts intellectually. You must internalize them through practical experience until they become part of your intuitive response to daily situations. You must test them through real-world application until you develop confidence in their reliability. This is why the convergence we're experiencing is both unprecedented opportunity and ultimate test. The same conditions that make it possible for these ancient mysteries to be revealed and applied also create possibilities for deception and manipulation that exceed anything previous generations faced. The same technologies that enable global coordination of divine purposes also facilitate worldwide propagation of lies and confusion. The same spiritual sensitivity that allows you to receive authentic divine guidance also makes you vulnerable to counterfeit revelation if you're not properly grounded in biblical truth. The same faith that enables you to participate in miraculous provision also opens you to exploitation by those who understand how to manipulate religious expectations for personal gain. This is why developing discernment becomes so crucial during this period. Not just the ability to distinguish between good and evil in obvious situations, but the spiritual sensitivity to recognize subtle deceptions that present themselves as truth, to identify counterfeit movements that copy authentic patterns, to detect false teachers who use genuine spiritual language to promote corrupt agendas. The mysteries we've uncovered tonight provide the tools needed for such discernment. But tools are only effective when they're properly understood and skillfully applied. This requires the kind of spiritual maturity that comes through consistent practice, careful study, and ongoing relationship with the divine source of all truth. As we near the conclusion of our exploration, I want you to understand that what we've discovered together isn't just information to file away for future reference. It's revelation that's meant to transform how you see yourself, your world, and your destiny. It's calling to recognize your place in the cosmic story that's reaching its climactic resolution during your lifetime. The same divine intelligence that revealed these truths to ancient prophets preserved them through centuries of opposition and is now unveiling them to your generation is actively working to position you for purposes that connect your personal story to the ultimate resolution of humanity's greatest challenges and highest possibilities. But positioning requires movement. Preparation demands action. Calling expects response. The next chapter of your story begins with whatever decision you make about how seriously you'll take what we've discovered together tonight. Because here's the ultimate truth that emerges from all 5 of these biblical mysteries. You were born for such a time as this. The convergence we're witnessing isn't happening around you by coincidence. You're not accidentally living during the most prophetically significant period in human history. The unique combination of your background, experiences, capabilities, and circumstances isn't just random chance. You've been prepared, positioned, and called for purposes that extend far beyond what you might have imagined possible. The same divine intelligence that orchestrated the fulfillment of ancient prophecies is orchestrating the circumstances of your life to align with opportunities that are becoming available as these biblical patterns reach their completion. The knowledge you've gained tonight, the connections you've made, the understanding you've developed, all of it is preparation for roles that don't exist yet but will emerge as historical conditions continue to evolve according to the prophetic templates we've identified. Your personal growth isn't just about improving your individual circumstances. It's about preparing for responsibilities that will become available as these ancient mysteries complete their fulfillment. The challenges you've faced weren't just obstacles to overcome. They were training experiences designed to develop capabilities you'll need for purposes that are greater than anything you've yet been asked to handle. The setbacks and disappointments that seemed like failures were actually preparation for opportunities that require different skills and perspectives than what previous phases of your life demanded. But recognizing these connections requires faith that extends beyond what you can currently see or prove. It demands trust in divine purposes that transcend immediate circumstances. It requires hope that remains steady even when external conditions suggest that positive change is impossible. This is the ultimate test that confronts every person who encounters these biblical mysteries. Will you believe that ancient prophecies are still being fulfilled? Will you trust that divine patterns are still operational? Will you have faith that individual lives still matter in the cosmic scope of eternal purposes? Your answer to these questions will determine not just your personal experience during these extraordinary times, but your contribution to outcomes that will influence the direction of human civilization for generations to come. The mysteries are real, the patterns are operational, the prophecies are being fulfilled, the convergence is accelerating. The only question that remains is whether you'll step into the role that's been prepared specifically for you since before you were born, or whether you'll remain on the sidelines while others take the positions of influence and responsibility that could have been yours. The biblical mysteries we've explored tonight reveal that this decision has eternal consequences that extend far beyond your individual lifetime. The same divine intelligence that has been guiding the development of these patterns throughout history is waiting for your response. What will you choose? The weight of this moment should be pressing on your heart right now. Because what we've uncovered together tonight isn't just ancient history that belongs in dusty libraries or theological seminars. These mysteries are alive, breathing, and actively reshaping your world at this very moment. Every news headline you'll read tomorrow carries echoes of the patterns we've discovered. Every technological breakthrough that changes how you live and work follows trajectories that were encoded in biblical prophecy thousands of years ago. Every political upheaval that seems chaotic and random is actually following templates that ancient seers recorded with trembling hands, knowing they were witnessing the blueprint for humanity's ultimate destiny. But here's what makes this revelation so personally urgent for you. These aren't just global patterns operating at levels beyond your influence. They're spiritual forces that are calling you into active participation. The same divine intelligence that orchestrated the fulfillment of prophecies throughout history is orchestrating the circumstances of your individual life right now, creating opportunities for you to play a role in events that will determine the direction of human civilization for generations to come. Think about the implications of what this means for how you live tomorrow morning. When you wake up and check your phone, you're not just scrolling through random information. You're witnessing the fulfillment of Daniel's prophecy about knowledge increasing at exponential rates. When you interact with people from different cultural backgrounds, you're not just engaging in modern diversity. You're participating in the reunification of ancient wisdom traditions that were scattered by divine design but preserved across centuries for this exact moment in history. When you face challenges that seem impossible to overcome through ordinary means, you're not just dealing with personal problems. You're encountering opportunities to access the same spiritual principles that enabled biblical heroes to transcend natural limitations. When you make decisions about timing and strategy in your career or relationships, you're not just following human intuition. You're tapping into mathematical rhythms that govern successful outcomes across time itself. And when you recognize patterns in current events that seem to mirror ancient stories, you're not just seeing interesting coincidences. You're witnessing the ongoing fulfillment of prophetic blueprints that are guiding history toward its predetermined resolution. This is why understanding these mysteries matters so profoundly for your daily existence. They reveal that you're not living a random life in a chaotic universe. You're participating in the most carefully orchestrated story ever told, playing a role that was written specifically for you before the foundation of the world was laid. But playing that role requires more than just intellectual awareness of these patterns. It demands practical application of the principles we've discovered, consistent alignment with the forces we've identified, and ongoing commitment to purposes that extend far beyond personal comfort or immediate gratification. The ancient figures who fulfilled their prophetic destinies didn't achieve their remarkable results through single moments of inspiration or lucky accidents. They developed their capabilities through daily choices to prioritize divine purposes over human agendas, to seek spiritual wisdom over conventional success, to trust divine timing over immediate results. Moses didn't part the Red Sea because he happened to be in the right place at the right time. He accessed that supernatural capability because he had spent decades learning to align his will with divine intention, to recognize divine guidance when it came, and to act on that guidance even when it contradicted every logical consideration. David didn't defeat Goliath through natural courage or superior skill. He drew on spiritual authority that he had cultivated through years of faithful service in obscurity, protecting sheep that nobody else cared about, developing intimate relationship with the God who sees and rewards hidden faithfulness. Daniel didn't survive the lion's den through positive thinking or natural immunity. He accessed divine protection because he had spent a lifetime maintaining spiritual practices that kept him connected to heavenly resources, regardless of external circumstances or social pressures. The same developmental process that enabled these ancient heroes to fulfill their destinies is available to you today, but it requires the same kind of dedication, the same commitment to spiritual growth, the same willingness to prioritize eternal purposes over temporal pleasures. This means treating your relationship with divine truth as the most important investment you can make, not because it provides escape from worldly responsibilities, but because it equips you with capabilities that will be essential for navigating the transitions we're experiencing and contributing to the solutions humanity desperately needs. It means developing spiritual sensitivity that can distinguish between authentic divine guidance and counterfeit revelation, between movements that align with biblical patterns and those that merely copy their external forms, between opportunities that serve divine purposes and those that advance other agendas regardless of how they present themselves. It means building character that can handle increased authority and influence without being corrupted by power. Wisdom that can navigate complex situations without compromising core principles, and faith that remains steady when external circumstances become chaotic or threatening. Most importantly, it means recognizing that your individual story is woven into a cosmic narrative that began before time and will continue into eternity. Every choice you make either advances that story toward its glorious resolution or contributes to forces that resist divine purposes and perpetuate human suffering. The convergence we're witnessing represents a moment when these individual choices become more consequential than they've ever been before. The acceleration we're experiencing means that decisions that might have taken generations to produce their full effects in previous eras now create ripple effects that influence global outcomes within years or even months. This is both unprecedented opportunity and ultimate responsibility. The same conditions that make it possible for ordinary people to access extraordinary spiritual capabilities also create possibilities for deception and manipulation that exceed anything previous generations faced. The biblical mysteries we've explored provide the framework for navigating these conditions successfully. But frameworks are only effective when they're properly understood and skillfully applied through consistent practice and ongoing spiritual development. As we conclude our journey together tonight, I want you to understand that this isn't really an ending, it's a beginning. What we've discovered opens doorways to levels of understanding and participation that could transform every aspect of your existence. But walking through those doorways requires courage, commitment, and faith that extends beyond what you can currently see or prove. The same divine voice that called ancient prophets out of ordinary circumstances into extraordinary purposes is calling your generation into roles that will determine whether humanity moves toward the glorious destiny that biblical prophecies describe or continues struggling with problems that have plagued civilization since the beginning of recorded history. The mysteries are real. The patterns are operational. The prophecies are being fulfilled with increasing frequency and precision. The convergence is accelerating toward climactic resolution. The opportunities are unprecedented, but opportunities without response become regrets. Knowledge without application becomes condemnation. Understanding without commitment becomes self-deception. The question that confronts every person who encounters these truths is whether they'll recognize the magnitude of the moment they're living in and respond with the kind of dedication that such recognition demands. You weren't born by accident during this pivotal period in human history. You weren't randomly given access to knowledge that previous generations could only dream of possessing. You weren't coincidentally positioned where you could learn about patterns that most people never see. You're here now, with this understanding. Because divine intelligence has been orchestrating circumstances to prepare you for purposes that connect your personal story to the ultimate resolution of humanity's greatest challenges and highest possibilities. The same force that encoded these mysteries in ancient texts, preserved them through centuries of opposition, guided their discovery by your generation, and brought them to your attention tonight, is actively working to position you for the next phase of your journey. But that next phase begins with whatever decision you make about how seriously you'll take what we've uncovered together. Whether you'll treat this as interesting information to think about occasionally, or as revelation that transforms how you see yourself, your world, and your destiny. The biblical mysteries we've explored reveal that this decision has consequences that extend far beyond your individual lifetime. The patterns we've discovered demonstrate that choices made during pivotal historical moments create effects that influence countless future generations. You're standing at exactly such a moment. The path you choose will determine not just where you end up, but who you become in the process. More importantly, it will determine your contribution to outcomes that will shape human civilization for generations to come. The mysteries have been revealed. The patterns have been identified. The invitation has been extended. The resources have been provided. The guidance is available. The support is accessible. What remains is your response to the calling that's been placed on your life. Your answer to purposes that extend far beyond what you might have imagined possible. Your decision about whether you'll step into the role that's been prepared specifically for you since before you were born. The same divine intelligence that has been orchestrating the fulfillment of these prophetic patterns throughout history is waiting for your answer. The next chapter of the cosmic story that began in ancient times and continues into eternity depends partly on what you choose to do with the knowledge you've gained tonight. The biblical mysteries are not just ancient history, they're present reality and future destiny. They're not just theological concepts, they're operational principles that can transform every aspect of your existence when properly understood and faithfully applied. But most importantly, they're not just information for you to consume passively. They're invitation for you to participate actively in the most significant developments in human history. The question that echoes through every human heart, that has driven seekers throughout every generation, that confronts your generation with unprecedented urgency, is being asked of you right now. Will you recognize your place in the cosmic narrative and accept the calling that's been prepared for you since before the foundation of the world? Your answer will determine not just your personal experience during these extraordinary times, but your contribution to the resolution of conflicts that have affected humanity since the beginning of recorded history. The choice is yours. The time is now. The invitation stands. What will you choose?